So Rush Duel's being contaminated right now? This is such an interesting topic to be looking at. So I stumbled upon a discussion being had by OCG players. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button. They were having a discussion talking about the contamination, or rather the diluting of what made Rush Duel so special with this revamp set that is coming out in the future, which is kind of interesting to think about, right? Because when you're looking at the way that Master or Rush Duel is, it's been its own self-contained format, but it's basically got, you know, the nostalgia pool built into it, right? You've had the celebration of Harpies, you've had the Blue Eye starter decks. Those were places that Konami were using to lure in players into Rush Duel. Let's call it what it is. I mean, right? You would think that their marketing is pretty obvious what they're trying to do. Now, some of the discussion I read from this was talking about, you know, they've lost sight of where they want Rush Duel to go. They've lost the, you know, we no longer have an anime. And contrary to popular belief, I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel was started on an actual anime. It was the spiritual successor to the card game, and it was meant to be a version of Yu-Gi-Oh! At home. It was basically Yu-Gi-Oh! 2, where, you know, we could have the same core mechanics, have a little bit of different rules, but it was easier for new players to come in. You know, it's not so much, you know, throw your, you know, hand at the board and hope that things stick and things work out for you, you know, or your opponent doesn't have a hand trap. That's what modern era Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. Rush Duel was that equivalent. That's why you see so many people wanting Rush Duel to come to the States. And honestly, I don't think it would be successful over here as much as I think COVID might have been. There's a little side note here for history. The reason why I don't think that the States got Rush Duel was because of COVID. I think they had an opportunity to push Rush Duel at the time, but because of COVID coming over here and slowing down the market, I don't think the market conditions were able to do that. And that's why Rush Duel is locked into Duel Links. But at the same time, you know, if you're an English player, you're able to actually, you can play the format. It's just to physically own a Rush Duel card, it's not going to happen. So, you know, but going back to the topic of this. So no anime has kind of taken, I mean, like, what are you supposed to do? Ritual was basically at the end of Rush Duel's anime, if I recall correctly. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but Ritual basically popped up, and it was like the real last mechanic that they kind of built into the format. And I mean, Ritual's being able to be an extra deck mechanic is still a pretty cool thing, but also Rush Duel doesn't have a remove from game pile. You just kick things back to the bottom of your opponent's deck, and it basically completes like a pseudo cycle in that. And also, what you draw until you have 5 cards in your hand every single turn. So Rush Duel's got its own, what I would consider to be flaws, because I don't like the drawing part of that. I can control my opponent, but you know, it's the same thing. They just brought Chaos Emperor Dragon into the game. Chaos Emperor Dragon wipes your opponent's hand. They go into their turn, they just go and they just get like a whole new resource pool. So I mean, like, some of the tools that work in modern era Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't necessarily work in Rush Duel, which I think that was one cool thing that they kind of did with the revamp pack was, you know, you get to see all of these, you know, old cards coming back. Now, this is one of the other points they're talking about, you know, having lost sight of Rush Duel, they've got to attract tourists into, you know, Rush Duel, you know. They've got to go get a new market, you know. If we make Black Magician of Chaos, Mahavile, you know, all these nostalgia cards that, you know, you grew up with, and it's like, oh, you know, maybe I suddenly have an interest to want to go collect some Rush Duel cards, you know. You've seen Brain Control, seeing Super Polymerization, you know, I can go play Rush Duel with the cards that I play with in modern era Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't that so cool that they're bringing these cards. It's like, okay, so they're hardwiring you to get you excited because, you know, these cards that you're used to playing, you know, once again, you're a tourist, you're coming in, you're taking a look at the scenery, and that's where the mentality of contamination's starting to come in. You know, we're no longer the anime. We've opened up the door to rituals at this point. You know, where is Rush Duel? Like, where are we supposed to go from here? We're going knock knock on the official Yu-Gi-Oh card game. You know, we've ported in the Chaos Monsters. I mean, you've gotten Chaos Emperor Dragon and Black Luster Soldier within 3 months of each other being announced. Don't tell me that Rush Duel is actually not taking notes from the official card game right now and porting them over, because to me, looking in, it kind of looks like Konami's running out of gas for Rush Duel. Now, there's always we can go knock knock on another mechanic. We can port in tuner monsters. I mean, it would not be an incredibly hard thing. And I mean, we've already got the maximum summon mechanic already in the game. You know, combine your boss monsters together. But I mean, realistically, I mean, how much of that is actually going to matter? And I mean, talk about the nostalgia pandering. I mean, Harpies was a competent tier 1 deck for a little while. Actually, I think it was a ban list or two ago. They actually had to clean Harpies up. So that's something to think about, you know. Also, to be fair, Rush Duel does have its own flavor. You know, having the Utopia deck be a baseball themed deck is kind of cool. I also saw Black Luster Soldier got a retrain. You know, they can take funny elements from the actual card game and they can tie it together. Also, in terms of extensive lore, we've seen, not in a lot of cases, but there's been a few cases where certain lores from cards actually have gotten extended into Rush Duel because there was no reason to print another card for them in the TCG. That's the thing too, right? Like, some of these normal monsters and, you know, some of the legacy of the game, they kind of have gotten forgotten about. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh! In the actual, Yu-Gi-Oh's the IP is, you know, 30 years now at this stage. And the fact that you're writing so many stories at this point, I get it. You know, certain things are going to get forgotten about, or certain things are going to get tossed in somewhere else. And there has to be a point where, you know, there has to be a give and take. And while Rush Duel looks like it has lost sight of what it is, there has to be a market. There has to be a push for this. It's also interesting they've never done the reverse either. They've not, Zero, or the Seven Roads Magician, has never been printed into the actual card game. They've left it locked into Rush Duel, but, you know, Dark Magician, Blue Eyes, you know, these more iconic cards, they've been reverse filtering them in. Why are we not pushing Rush Duel into the actual card game itself? That's been one interesting thing that I've always kind of wondered was, why does it get to go one way, but we can never go back? Is it because once we get somebody on Rush Duel, we don't want them returning back to the actual card game in terms of things? This discussion might not mean a lot to you, but it's interesting to look into the mindset and actually dissect the problems in, you know, another part of the game that we love, whether or not it's the marketing, you know, the intent behind things, or, you know, you also have to dive into the minds of the players to understand the community surrounding these formats. You know, there's so much to understand why somebody's not happy or why somebody is happy with the situation that we have to make and analyze these calls and understand why things are working the way they are. And I don't necessarily disagree with this. It's interesting looking at the current design philosophy of Rush Duel to really paint the picture of what's going on with things. And honestly, I don't know. I'm a little bit intrigued with it. We'll see where that actually goes, though, in the near future. So what do you think about the state of Rush Duel? Leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here today, guys. Patrons! Thank you. Ah!
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.